J. Madison Vance of New Orleans, Louisiana. This is his speech from the 19th century. It is a reading entitled, "In the Wake of the Coming Ages." In these trying times of peace with tears of blood, these times of crime so horrible and fiendish that Christianity bows in the supplication for surcease of sorrow, and the advance of civilization seems in vain. In these times when the Negro is compared to the brute, and his mentality limited to the ordinary, in these times when the holy robes of the church are used to decry, vilify, and malign the race, in these times when the subsidized press of the country loudly proclaims the Negro's incapacity for government, in these times I turn with pardonable pride to the Grand United Order of Odd Fellows, an organization the affairs of which are administered entirely by colored men, an organization that typifies the possibilities of the race, the organization whose very existence gives the lie to the damnable aspersions cast upon us by the enemies of humanity. This grand organization is but a collection of individuals, and as individuals we must shape our destiny. The time is past for pleading. These are days of action. The higher we rise, the sharper will become the prejudice of color. The laboring white is jealous of the competition of the blacks. The problem is to be worked out in the South, and largely by ourselves. With all the disadvantages and prescriptive doctrines that encroach upon us in the Southland, I honestly believe that this land, with all its natural beauties and advantages, this land below the mountains, this land of passion and pleasure, of fever and fret, this land famed in history, song, and story as the land of Dixie, is the Negro's coming Arcadia. From its lowlands and marshes will yet come forth the peerless leader, who will not only point out the way, but will climb the battlements of tolerance and race prejudice, backed by march of civilization, and with his face to the enemy, fight the battle of common humanity. The romance of emancipation is fading out. The old slave is rapidly passing. The mythology of his period is extinct. The Republic has declared against the Force Bill. The Praetorian Guard is mustered out, and the sentiment of the times is against paternalism. Every tub must stand on its own bottom, and the eloquence of orator cannot arrest the trend of the times. A problem is half solved when facts are apprehended. It is more than half solved when the facts are comprehended, and practical sense succeeds sentiment. The Negro confronts destiny. He must be the architect of his own fortune. He must demonstrate capacity and independence, because mendacity is always destructive. The living present calls us away from the ashes of the dead and buried past. Our hopes are brighter and our ambitions higher. Let us stand on our own racial pride and prove our claim for equality by showing the fruits of thrift, talent, and frugality. The brotherhood of genius will not refuse the need of merit. And within the sweep of our constant observations, great artists, musicians, poets, and orators are more than hinted possibilities. We would be criminals to despair. The Negro is here, and here to stay, and traveling rapidly in the wake of coming ages. We know not how far, the goal may still be distant, but at least we think we see it, and our most fervent hope is to approach it more and more nearly, till each man finds his own in all men's good, and all men work in noble brotherhood, breaking their mailed feet, fleets and armored towers, and ruling by obeying nature's powers, and gathering all the fruits of the earth and crowned with her flowers. As the shadows come creeping over the dial of time, the 19th century faces the setting sun. A century replete with the greatest inventions of modern times and with the fullness of scientific investigation beyond the possible conception of man 100 years ago. This century has emancipated woman, and like the dreamers on the brow of Parnassus, she is not forgetful of the toilers and other altitudes within the horizon's rim. She is not blind to the signal lights which in their blaze proclaim new knowledge, new power for man, new triumphs, new glory for the human spirit in its march on chaos and the dark. Any message of love would be incomplete without her gentle voice. Her love is life, white-winged and eternal. Her welcome is spontaneous, fervent, whole-souled, generous. Her influence is felt everywhere throughout the ramifications of our order. The wholesome power of her persuasive counsel is oftentimes needed, and the tender mercies of her tireless devotion have smoothed away the grim visage of discontent, brought solace to the fevered brain, and made peaceful and dreary journey from life to death. We look upon our vast army of followers and glory in our stalwart band. Out of the darkness of the night, imposing in our numbers, stand we forth, splendid and terrible in the wake of the coming ages. And when we look at all the magnificent fabric we call civilization, its incalculable material, its wealth, its amazing mechanical resources, its wonderful scientific discoveries, its many-sided literature, its sleepless and ubiquitous journalism, its lovely art, its astounding charities, its awful fears and sublime hopes, we get a magnificent conception of the possibilities of life. As this latest of the century draws its purple robe about its majestic form and stands up to die as the old Roman Caesar stood, in all magnificence of its riches and the plenitude of its power. But after all, the measure of its value is the character of humanity.